gazed in dreams.
Good morning, sunshine. Shut up. Morning, sunshine.
About who they are and what that means and what to do from other sources, which is one of the reasons why the media plays such an important role, because that's where we generally turn to find out about the world.
Welcome to Sprouts from Pacifica, Radio from the Grassroots, a weekly program that showcases radio productions by independent community media. We bring local stories to a national audience.
Hello, 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 Sarasota. This is the Body Mind Health Show, and I'm Dr. Sean Stringer, and you're listening to WSLR 96.5 LPFM Sarasota and WBPV 100.1 LPFM Brainton. The views, comments, and opinions that come from our interviews, shows, and on-air personalities and from our call-in guests are uncensored, and those views and opinions can be widespread and extremely diverse. The opinions and views expressed by same does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of WSLR, our staff, or our volunteers. Every summer, don't leave your children or pets in the car. Actually, we're in Florida. Don't leave them in the car at any time. It's always hot here. So every summer is heartbreaking, and preventable deaths occur when children are left alone in hot cars. These tragedies occur when the driver forgets or is unaware children are in the vehicle. Also with pets. Within minutes, especially in the summer and early fall, like we are here in Florida, the children's well-being and even life are in danger. This is also true for pets. Never leave pets alone in a hot car. If you see a child or pet alone in a hot car, call 911 immediately. Then get them out if they are in distress. Means break that window, grab a rock, grab something, and just break that window and get them out. Their life is much more valuable than that window. So today on the Body Mind Health Hour, which is actually just a half hour today, is a special guest that I have with me, Dr. Cynthia Clark from here in Sarasota, and we're going to be talking about insomnia. Hello, Cynthia.
Good morning, Dr. Stringer.
How are you doing?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
I love that we finally got you on.
Yay.
And I've known you for a few years now, and we knew of each other before that. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm an acupuncture physician, and I'm an applied clinical nutritionist, and I'm the creator of a body of work called Energy Evolution. So one of the things I do is I teach my patients about energy medicine and how to apply that to themselves through the lens of quantum physics.
Very, very cool. That's a language I speak myself. And
I knew I liked you.
We knew there was something that connected us. So let's get into the topic. Let's just jump in right now, and we're going to talk about, essentially, insomnia. But let's talk about a little bit about sleep and how sleep is one of the pillars of health and why sleep is so important.
Yes. Well, one of the ways that we can measure the importance of sleep is by its effect on what happens when we don't get it. So, for example, the National Sleep Foundation estimates that if you are driving with only 6 to 7 hours of sleep, and that's not much, right? I mean, like most of us miss an hour a night of sleep. We don't really think of that as a big deal, right?
Correct.
But 6 to 7 hours a night, you are twice as likely to have a motor vehicle accident. And if you are sleeping 5 or less hours a night, you are 4 to 5 times as likely to have that accident. I call this, when I introduce this in the presentations I give, I call this section, My Dad Was a Jerk, because when I was growing up, my dad, who's a pilot and a mechanic and aircraft inspector, essentially had some pretty close ties with the FAA from, having to get his certifications, had a really strict rule in our house that none of my other friends ever had. Nobody ever mentioned this. Nobody else was subject to these rules. And it was, I was never allowed to drive on less than 8 hours of sleep. And I thought my dad was a jerk at the time. And obviously it was because he really loved me and he knew this information, even though most people didn't. So to this day, I have these same rules, and I'm very, very diligent about my sleep these days and making sure I get enough of it.
Fantastic. So tell me, what is the current recommendation? Actually, let's tell the listeners what the current recommendation is about sleep.
most people need 8 hours of sleep. There are a few people that are just walk into this world and they need less. They function fine on 6 hours. I would say there's a much larger number of people who think they function fine on 6 hours than who actually do. And, full disclosure here, I worked my way through undergraduate, and during that time, I slept about 4 hours a night, and I took a 20-minute power nap the next day, and, I thought I was a rock star for doing it. When I graduated from school, I remember in my first job, I was sitting there, I was looking out the window as an industrial engineer, so now I have a desk job. I'm looking out the window, and I suddenly realized that I can see the leaves on the trees, and I haven't seen this for years because my vision was so affected by my sleep deprivation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have recommendations for people, say the person that likes to hit the snooze button in the morning?
Okay, so I really look at all of these sleep patterns, sleep behaviors in general as symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so for the person who hits the sleep button, then the snooze button, then usually what I'm looking at is, they probably have some adrenal fatigue. If they have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, then it's usually a physiological condition. Now, there's also our behavioral aspect of that. And I was certainly a snooze abuser for a long time. You can imagine if I was sleeping 4 hours a night.
We won't tell anybody.
I think I just told everybody. And so part of it is the habit. There's a really, really great TED Talk where the lady is talking about she implemented a countdown and her life was kind of a wreck and she was struggling with depression.
Mel Robbins.
Yeah, thank you.
5-second rule. I love it. I teach that to my patients.
So when she wakes up in the morning, she does a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out of bed. That's it. And it makes things a lot easier. No questions, just done. And that way you don't have to think about it, because it's the thinking about it that's really exhausting.
Yeah. And people get hung up on it, and they don't realize that once they hit that snooze button, because they popped out of their sleep, it takes them, like a sleep cycle is roughly 90 to 110 minutes. And when they hit that snooze button, they start to go in. Then when the alarm goes off again, they just broke one of those cycles, and they're more likely to be fatigued during the day. And they don't realize that it's like self-inflicted.
Yes. The long days of the snooze abuse. Yes, it's exactly what it felt like. I would hit the button and it's like, if I can just get 7 more minutes. I don't know how they choose the algorithm for how long that thing goes off. 7 more minutes. That's going to make the difference in my day, is these 7 more minutes. No, it's not. It's just going to interrupt my sleep cycle again. And I'm going to have to go through the whole process of waking up again. I remember one time when I was in high school, I was in academic decathlon. And so, we were studying a lot. And I was so tired one morning. I did not drive this day. I was so tired one morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table and I fell asleep at the kitchen table. And I had the entire dream of waking up, having my breakfast, getting ready for school, getting out the door, and going on about my day. And then I wake up and realize I haven't done any of those things, and I'm so exhausted. It was the snooze, right? It was this is worse. This is not better. But there can be physiological conditions. So yes, there's the habitual, and also if it's really a problem to get out of bed, then talk to a healthcare practitioner, look at the things that feed your adrenals, because it's entirely possible that your body just needs a little extra love to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people, their adrenals are firing at the wrong point during the day. So instead of being mid-morning being the highest, they're actually firing, their adrenal glands are firing the hottest, like somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. in the morning. And it seems to just be throwing them all off. So they wonder why they're waking up all of a sudden, and then they're just wide awake during the middle of the night. It's a lot of times it's the adrenals, but you wouldn't have mentioned something else that related to waking up at different hours in the night. And this is one of my go-to techniques when people are having certain issues. Is what you're about to mention to us now. Good. Talk about it now for us.
Yeah, and so thank you for the opportunity to talk about this lens, because that's what we're doing. We're choosing different lenses to look at the body through. So just a moment ago, we were using the functional medicine lens, and we were talking about the adrenals, also the liver, the vasomotor reflex, the blood sugar regulation, and these are words that we're accustomed too. Like as English speakers, they sound like English words. And even if we don't have a huge frame of reference, we've got something to hang it on.
It's still our Western medicine science.
Yes. Yes. And so that's one lens. And so now we're going to pick up a different lens. And I'm so glad that you're also familiar with it. And before I do, I just wanted to share the story with you. I'm sure that you know it. It's one of my favorite Zen koans, and it's about the beginner's mind. And so a very advanced student, which all of you have a lot of experience sleeping and missing sleep. So a very advanced Zen student goes to a Zen master, and he walks in and he says, "I am very knowledgeable. I know many things, but you have this reputation of being a Zen master, so I want to learn from you." And the Zen master does not say anything. He picks up a cup and he puts it on the table and he pours a cup of tea. And he keeps pouring until the cup is overflowing. And the student interrupts him and says, Master, stop, the cup is overflowing." And the master says, "This cup is as you are. You are already full. I cannot give you any more. I cannot accept you as a student." It is my reminder, beginner's mind, because like me, I know you study a lot. We learn new stuff all the time, and it's so cool and it's so exciting. And sometimes I can look at a problem and go, "Oh, I already know the answer to that. I already got that." And there could be a whole paradigm that I might be missing. So I'm delighted to introduce you to the Chinese Meridian clock. And you can look this up online. There's beautiful, beautiful pictures. And what you'll see is a clock, a circle. Each 2-hour segment indicates a different organ that comes into primary play during this time in the body. So you can think of all of these different organs as actors on a stage, and each one of them gets a time that they get to be the main actor, and they get all of the attention and all of the applause, and everyone's really excited to hear from them. Mm-hmm. And there are certain organs that get center stage during the nighttime. So, for example, the first message in here is all sleep is not the same. 8 hours does not equal 8 hours depending on what time of day you sleep. So, for example, sleeping from 9 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning isn't the same as sleeping from 5 o'clock in the morning until, what is that?
Let's see, that would be one in the afternoon.
1 in the afternoon, right. And here's why. So from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, this is the time that the pericardium is most active. The pericardium is the lining that goes around the heart. Its biomedical, physiological function is to protect the heart from infection. So if you hear this term, pericarditis, we're talking about infection in the lining around the heart. You want that lining around the heart because that's what keeps the heart more protected. Very, very, very important. There's also a metaphorical and metaphysical function of the pericardium, which is the protector of the heart. So this is boundaries and self-love and filling oneself up. So from 7 to 9 o'clock at night is a wonderful time to be in bed, to be reading some really nourishing soul food, like maybe even chicken soup for the soul, these kinds of things. This is also a very lovely time to be intimate. This is a very lovely time to be in heart-soulful connection, gentle, protected time. From 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night is the time that the triple burner is most active. And the triple burner is an organ that is has a few different descriptions in Chinese medicine. It's also called the triple energizer. It's called the triple warmer. It's called the sanjiao. So if you're looking this up, it's called the circulation meridian or the sex meridian. If you're looking this up, then you may see these different words used to describe them. It's because these are all translations of the Chinese words. So the triple burner is involved in the endocrine system, and it's also involved in metabolism. It can be described as the fascia that goes around all of the organs, and it's a very important time for water metabolism in the body. So in Florida, we live in this damp, hot climate. We're all walking around in kind of the sauna all the time. Very easy for our internal fluids to burn up. And down in Florida, we don't really have that cooling system that goes, you sweat, you evaporate, you cool. Mm-hmm. Down here, it goes, you sweat, you're done. You're just going to get hotter. So the triple warmer triple burner, is responsible for this endocrine system and this water metabolism system. And so if you are having difficulty with anything related to energy, thyroid, adrenals, diabetes, all of these things can be involved with the triple warmer. The next organ that comes up from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is the gallbladder meridian. What's the most common surgery in America today?
Yeah, gallbladder removal.
Everybody needs it. Maybe not. But if you are awake between 11 o'clock at night and 1 o'clock in the morning, your gallbladder isn't getting all of the energy it needs. So let's go back to the stage for a moment. And now picture that the gallbladder comes out as the main character, and he's trying to get his lines in, right? He's trying to do his bit. But there's every other character is talking. Every other actor in the play is talking, and even the audience crowds the stage. Can't hear the gallbladder very well. The gallbladder is not getting its time to do its job. And of course, the gallbladder's job is to condense the bile that comes from the liver. Have you ever heard the phrase, the gall of him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this means the nerve of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking here about courage. So for the person whose gallbladder becomes depleted, this person becomes very timid. They may lose their voice. They may not physically, but their voice might get very quiet, not speak up, not take right action when necessary because of this timidity that comes from simply gallbladder depression. From 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning is liver time. And of course, the liver is responsible for detoxifying the body and repairing and rebuilding blood cells. And for creating this bile. So this is when I say, the gallbladder gets a really bad rap for what's going on with the liver, because the liver is responsible for creating this bile, which might be a little too thin, or it could be really thick and sludgy. And it gets over to the gallbladder and it's trying to condense it. And it's like working with this thick, and then we wind up with gallstones, right?
Yeah.
Or the really thin, it can't do its job. It doesn't have the right consistency. So a lot of times the gallbladder as messenger gets shot for really problems that are going on with the liver. And that's why we need to go upstream and look at the liver. The metaphysical function of the liver is planning. So people who are consistently missing this sleep time from 1 to 3 o'clock in the morning oftentimes have difficulty planning their life, planning week to week, planning short and long-term goals. When I have missed this time in my sleep schedule, it was really hard to just get my daily to-do list down because I'm like, I don't, could I have some coffee, please?
I never even thought about it that way from back in college, and just wondering why I was so disorganized during that time. And especially my freshman year when things were just taking off. Now you're not in a classroom from 8 to 3 every day, that you have this free time to do with what you want. And now I'm wasting it. And at that time I was just like, I got all this extra time. I didn't know what to do with myself, and staying up those late nights way past 3.
Yes.
And well, it makes sense.
And we're all still grown-ups. I mean, we have responsibilities, but nobody's in charge of us. Nobody's going to come along and say, you have to go to sleep now. I mean, if I want to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning, and for me, it's much more likely that that's going to happen because I think I need to keep working on something, right? Like, which has to do with some other things we'll talk about in a little bit. But if there's nobody that comes along and says, it's your bedtime now, it's time to go to sleep now. And so we can end up accidentally squandering this great gift of time, and we miss the no do-overs aspect of sleep, which is the second piece of this. So we have all skipped a few hours. We've all pulled an all-nighter for one reason or another, having a great time at a concert, doing some fun stuff. But we can make that up only on a very short period of time. We can make up one night's sleep. Cumulatively, there are no do-overs, and cumulatively it has this toxic effect on all of the organs that we've just been talking about. And then in addition to that, the brain, the lovely, lovely, lovely brain. So there's the rule of threes. You may know it. So you can go 3 minutes without air. Mm-hmm. You can go 3 days without
water.
Yep. And you can go 3 weeks without
food.
Right. Very few people know how many days you can go without sleep. And I will tell you that you can go longer without food than you can without sleep. And yet throughout the day, we get tons of signals that tell us time to eat, time to eat, time to eat. I mean, if we were to be locked in this little studio room and told you're not going to be able to get out for 3 days, here's some water, the very first thing that we would do would be riot because nobody gave us any food. We'd be really cranky.
Actually, I like fasting for 3 days every quarter. So.
Okay, well, all
I'd be
right.
like, okay, I guess time's now.
But we don't get those same signals about sleep. We do, but we've really trained ourselves to overlook them or to buy into the illusion that we're sick. The reason for this is because the brain has really important work that it's doing at night. Its job is to flush all of the toxins, to reorganize the information that we've been exposed to, like this talk right now, and to rebuild and to fortify our neural pathways, and then also, to take out the trash. So brain has a lot of work that it's doing all this time. And if we're busy thinking, doing work, up partying, then we are not giving the brain the time that it needs to orchestrate all of these different organs, doing their work, to clean itself, to tidy itself. We're in fact robbing ourselves. If you want to make somebody really dumb really fast, all you have to do is deprive them of a couple hours sleep a night. I'm sure every new parent can attest to this.
Trust me, as having 6 children, it's quite accurate. It's also why it's an interrogation technique.
Right, exactly. It's a torture technique, and that's why we don't have that many studies on it. It's because it's not ethical. It's horrible. And yet, through animal testing, unfortunately, we know that our time span, our lifespan in sleep deprivation is about 10 days.
Yeah.
So we can go longer without food than we can without sleep, and yet most of us are going without sleep every single day, without enough sleep every single day. And again, 8 hours does not equal 8 hours. Going to sleep at 9 and getting up at 5 is a wildly different experience than going to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting up at 11 o'clock in the morning. We're not getting our meridians the time that they need. We're not giving our brain the time that they need. And this is really, 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 really dangerous. In fact, there are several disasters that have been caused by lack of sleep. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, the Exxon Valdez oil spill were all caused by sleep deprivation.
I think the first Skyway Bridge accident was actually another sleep deprivation.
Really?
thing. I'm pretty sure. I can't if I recall correctly, and I was probably like 6 or 7 when that came out, that something had happened to do with sleep deprivation with the captain at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it happens all the time. Even last week, there were a couple of presentations I was working on the Insomnia presentation and missing sleep to work on the Insomnia presentation. So I didn't do that very long.
Isn't it ironic?
Don't you think? But I noticed all of these little micro mistakes that I made. Just simple reflexes, not being as strong. My workout on Friday morning, I wasn't as strong. I wasn't quite as organized in my thoughts, especially later in the week. And then I was also a little bit clumsy. I remember this moment. I dropped a pepper shaker, one of these glass bottles that's got the grinder on the bottom, right? Mm-hmm. So I have this moment where it, like in slow motion, it falls to the floor and crashes splendidly all over the floor, bits everywhere. And it's just like scattered. And I'm looking at it thinking, this is a really excellent visual of all of the hidden glitches that happen in my brain from just a little bit of lack of sleep. Not even a lot, just a little bit.
Let's talk about really quickly about insomnia doesn't mean that you just can't get to sleep.
Oh, right. One of my favorite conversations was with someone that I knew very well. And I said, let's work on your sleep deprivation. Let's work on your insomnia. And he said, I don't have insomnia. And I said, do you have trouble falling asleep? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you have trouble staying asleep? And he said, yeah. And I said, that's insomnia. And he's like, no, but I get a couple hours a night. Insomnia does not mean that you don't get any sleep ever. That's death. Mm-hmm. Insomnia just means that you have trouble falling asleep and you have trouble staying asleep. And sometimes it even means that you have non-restful sleep. So maybe you're you're asleep at one level, but you're waking up exhausted because you're not getting into deep sleep. So there's several different kinds of insomnia. So yes, thank you very, 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 very much. If you have trouble getting to sleep, so it takes longer than 30 minutes, or you wake up at night, like let's say you wake up to go to the bathroom and you're awake for more than 15, maybe 30 minutes tops, then you're missing a significant amount of your sleep, and we call that insomnia. So if you fall into that category, we are talking to you.
I tell people that you have to get a minimum of 5 hours uninterrupted, like meaning not getting your head should not rise up. Should not rise up. If it rises up, you've pretty much kind of like reset the clock again on there, and you're not getting at least an adequate amount of deep sleep during that time. And so the people that constantly get up in the middle of the night becomes an issue, and then we have to look at these organs to see which ones are being affected. And we look at the adrenals. We have to look at all these different things to see what's going on. And then also have to make those lifestyle changes of, okay, let's not drink past 8 p.m., depending on when they go to sleep. Like, let's not drink within 3 hours, and let's try to go to the bathroom before, so we're not waking up in the middle of the night. And it is because people become routine, and this becomes behavioral, and people don't understand that they've ingrained, it's actually an addiction. They've ingrained it so much that it's become so routine. It's an actual addiction. And we have to break that and form a new addiction that's productive for their life and a new behavior sequence. And
I'm so glad you brought up addictions, because I would really love to talk about coffee.
Oh, okay. We were talking about this before the show. I just took it up maybe about a year ago, because prior to that, I didn't drink it. I didn't enjoy the taste.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to out you, but
I'll out myself. I have no problem. We got 3 minutes left.
So one of the things that I see happen is that people get into this sleep deprivation cycle. And okay, so first and foremost, coffee can be a life-saving drug. If you are on a road trip and you absolutely have to get to the place you're going, and the options are drink coffee or drive off the road because you fell asleep, please drink coffee. It is the healthiest and best thing possible in the world. It will save your life.
That was me Thursday and Saturday to and from Tallahassee.
Yeah. So they're really, let's be very, very grateful that we can easily get this at any gas station, and it has saved many, many, many people's lives. Stepping back from that, other times than that, often what I see is people get into the cycle of they're not getting enough sleep, so they wake up the next morning and they drink the coffee because they didn't get enough sleep the night before. And then they feel great because coffee is a mood-enhancing drug. And the world is beautiful and sparkly. And then they go through the day and they go, I don't have any coffee after midnight or afternoon, so shouldn't affect my sleep. They have a little trouble going to sleep that night. They had trouble the night before, so, no difference. They get up the next morning and they have coffee. Coffee does have a cumulative effect on sleep cycle. So, and if you are drinking 4 cups of coffee between 8 a.m. and noon, then it's going to have more of a cumulative effect. So be aware of that. And also there is a mold in coffee called orotoxin A that has a fungal die-off experience that feels a whole lot like being tired. So from the addiction perspective, even without the intention, even without the actual being addicted to coffee aspect, it can appear as if one is addicted to coffee, because you drink the coffee, you feel better, everything's sparkly, and then you get the mold die off, and the next day you feel worse, and so you drink the coffee because everything feels good and you feel sparkly, and so it sets up like this. Thank you for letting me have my coffee commercial. Green tea does not have the same effect.
It has. Yeah, it's something we need to continue this. Can you come back in the next couple of weeks when we discuss this a little bit further? Because there's so much that we have not even scratched the surface on in this topic, and it being so important to me because it's one of the pillars of health, that we need to discuss this further with our listeners. Well, tell us how to get a hold of you.
Oh, sure. So the easiest way is my clinic is Longevity Wellness, and Heather is our office manager, and she would be delighted to answer any questions or to set up a free 15-minute consult. Our phone number is 941-923-9355. Our website is longevitywellnessclinic.com.
Cool. Is there a book, really quickly, that you would recommend to people?
My favorite resource?
Or TED Talk.
I know, right? It's actually a blog by a triathlete whose name is Ben Greenberg, and he has a couple of articles that I found really, really, really effective at getting the point across and shifting the paradigm on sleeplessness. So those are actually my favorite resources on it, even though there's a lot of great books out there, and I've read many of them, but that's my favorite.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to wrap it up right now, and just stay tuned. We have the World Music Show coming up on next. Oh, and there's. Do you want to talk really quick about that?
October 21st.